Hi, everybody. This is the Nephew SIG Automation Package Management Subproject meeting for May 4th. All right, let's get started. Only thing on the agenda today is to go through the sprint board, see where we are. We're almost to the end of the sprint, just a couple days left. So let me share my screen. Okay, here we go. Let me put this so I can see. People who's here too. Okay, so looking through, do we have Sandeep here? I don't see him. Okay, so he's still working on it. He commented yesterday. We discussed it yesterday. Hopefully he'll get something this week. On this one, it's in review. No major issues so far in the review have come up. So I'm hoping we can get that merged before too long. Simon, any new updates here, or you just mentioned you wanted to talk after the call?
Yeah, so there's one thing, there's one question I have in regards to idempotency and like what does it mean in that context, just so we are on the same page. But okay. I've solved all the KYAML topics. So with this, I think this will be finished tomorrow. I feel quite confident.
Okay,
there's
awesome.
Not much. There's not much left on that one.
Okay, good. There's did you end up using the new? Did you end up using the function SDK first of all?
No, so I think it doesn't help with the big challenge that I have, which is like reverse appending. Basically, that's the thing. We maybe need to implement a append function.
I mean, we could have put we could have put it at the end if it's but if you've got it working now, let's keep it where it is.
I mean, you will see, I think, in the PR, like if we can make optimizations using the function package, I'm all for it. Like I'm all for simplifying what I wrote.
Okay. All right, that sounds good. We'll take a look at it later. All right, excellent though. That's great. So we should have this done tomorrow. Hopefully this will merge this week as well. So this one, I have a partial implementation. I'm going to keep chugging away at it over the next couple days. I hope to get it done, but it might not happen. But I think there's a decent chance of it being at least under review. And I think I linked the PR there if anybody's curious to see.
I can definitely offer to take a look next week once the other thing is done. If that helps you.
Yeah. I mean, let me I'll just link the PR here. It's still a draft. It's not implemented yet. I mean, I've got parts of it done, but oh, right. GitHub doesn't seem to be working right now. Seems to be totally broken. So we're not going to be able to update things. Okay, I saw Piotr, are you here? Yes, all right, you're back. I hope you're back from vacation and not here while you're on vacation, but that's up to you. I saw a comment, but I didn't get a chance to read it. Did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I'm back. I just asked on the Slack, but I suspect you didn't saw the message. I can create a PR for the first version of the kept packages, which I just wonder to which repo. I mean, because there is 35dc/packages. and both has similar descriptions. So where the peer should be.
Yeah, I did see that. That's right. So the UE ransom, that's not free 5GC at all, right? That's just its own thing.
Yeah.
Is that correct? So
Yeah.
that should go in the net. That should probably go in the NFIO packages, I would guess. And then the free 5GC ones, I think, should probably go in the free 5GC packages. So the theory being, right, we have a repo for vendor packages associated with particular vendor network functions, and we have a repo for everything else. And so for by vendor, I mean each individual vendor could have their own repo, or I mean we can always change it later, but like that's kind of the structure of those packages, those repos that are there now.
Okay, cool. I will make 2 PRs, one for the P5DC and one for the ransom. Okay, thank you.
Sure, thank you. Awesome. And then I actually I mixed up these issues. So Victor, any additional comments here? You made a comment yesterday, it looks like.
Yeah, so basically Ravi and Bish, we have like a quick conversation, and basically we were trying to mitigate, like especially because like what to do, like in terms of like the installer, the internal process has been taking longer than expected. So I was suggesting maybe to proceed and create something without depending of the installer that I have it. So
Okay.
actually, once that this process concludes, like I can merge, like combine all these instructions.
Okay. So I saw there were some questions on Slack. I mean, this is the same issue, so I guess we're talking about.
Yeah, similar or related.
It sounded like there were some questions about how to do different manipulations with kept, but it looked like progress was being made there. Are there any blockers? I guess maybe is the main question, other than the process issue. Yeah, Wim.
No, Victor, I had a quick look at your thing that you did, so which is great, right? Because are you using cluster API? You're using cluster API to set up the Kine cluster, right?
Yeah, that's right.
My view is, John, we can easily create a package for this.
Awesome. That's what I was hoping. Awesome.
Yeah. But Victor, maybe if you have time after this call, let's sync. Maybe if we need Vish and Ravi, that's fine. But I think I was looking at it a couple of hours ago just to see whether we could create a package. And I think you actually have a package already, but you're not putting it as a package.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if we do that, we can basically, because if we then need 3 clusters, we just, okay, whether we can do the whole flow that we have, John, because what we could do, my ideal view, what I have right now is we have a blueprint package of a cluster, which is Kine, right? And then we do fan out.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Then we actuate, right? So, and then with configs, we could do exactly the same flow as we do for NF.
Yes. So what we would need to do that, and Sandeep's not here, but he had volunteered for this in the past. We would need a bootstrapper to install config sync on those clusters. So there's 3 things.
But even I think for just to create the clusters, I think on the management cluster we just create config sync. Yes. So we sync these clusters on the management cluster, which will then create them, and then there's another process. But let's say step by step, okay. Right? So
step by step. So you're right. Yeah. We completely should be able to use, if we make a package for the cluster, we should be able to use all the same machinery to provision clusters. And if you've got the networking, inter-cluster networking configuration doing it too, then that's even better, right? Like,
whether we get it fully there at the moment, but okay. I think we are on the path to do that. I think there we are. Maybe because specialization is almost, let's say, done. It's in a good shape. So maybe I'll help. I'll try to put my effort a little bit here to try to get this going. But if we could, maybe not everything, but we can have subcomponents of it. It would basically, I do 2 things in my view: prove that we are on the right track,
Yeah.
And then second is we can just we see where we have gaps, what we need to fill, and then maybe we do some hacks left, right, and center. But
Okay.
Yeah.
So then what I would ask is that one, we include cluster API in our Nephew system packages or the process for installing. It doesn't have to be in Nephew system. It could be, but like right there, right now we have like Nephew web UI, we have Nephew system. Like
Yeah.
how we break that apart is kind of up to us. But I'd like to see cluster API running in the management cluster, put it that way, as part of our standard installation. And then a package, like you said, to represent a cluster. And if we do those two things, we already can demonstrate a lot.
For sure. Yeah, correct. Yeah. Okay.
I think Vish has a hand up.
Yeah, so if you can go back to 47, if you can click on that, I know you had your comments there, right? So if I were to look at the verbiage of this particular issue, I feel it is done, right? In a way. If we need to extend the scope with your comments, John, it's a suggestion that maybe we should open another issue to track it and scope it.
Sure. Yeah, I think this wasn't supposed to, is this an epic? Oh no, this is a parent issue. Okay. Yeah, we should have separate issues for each like package that we're going to create, right? So if you think this is done, go ahead and close it.
Yeah, but I want to make sure. I know. I mean, of course, we are getting better, right? From workshop to R1, we are getting a lot better. So because some of the things that your comments to which Victor responded, I felt was like, hey, it's a new effort, a new issue that needs to be tracked, is how I felt about it. Like, for example, if you go to your comment on the same issue, you're saying, hey, this is great. And that's at the bottom.
This,
Controller for kind clusters and for creating repos, right? So do you think this is associated with this, or is it a separate one?
So feel free to close and recreate issues in a way that helps you manage the work. I don't have any particular affinity for any issue. So, we put in, and Bala put in, a bunch of issues based on our initial estimates of what we had to get done. But as you go to execute the work, it's highly likely those change, and that's fine. So go ahead and close this and create the specific issues you need for the extensions. What I do want to understand is right now, when you say it's done, it's still in the workshop repo. Is that true?
The instructions are still in the workshop repo, yes, but we will be, the installer will consume this information, basically, right? I mean, this is now tied to the installer, right? And if you notice, what I have tried to do is I've tried to separate out in terms of, hey, if you don't want to use the workshop Ansible scripts, that's fine. But these are the 8 commands that you need to use to actually do this, right? Which means it can be easily incorporated.
So what I'd like is for those either in this issue or a different issue to capture that we need to, that workshop repo, I really want to close it down and archive it, because it's like named workshop 2022. Like it's not intended to be a long-term thing. It was a short-term thing. I want to move those instructions, move those scripts, move everything to the main Nephew repo or another repo that's long-lived. So that's the only thing I want to make sure we do. Like the things that are in Nephew packages, that's already done. The things that are, but I just want to make sure that there's no dangling items left that this issue represents to get that done, or we create new issues to represent that specific work that's not so general as this.
So the comments in this particular issue are not, it does not cling to what is out there for the workshop. There's no clinging there. So, there's no dependency because it's very independent. If it is tied to the installer, what needs to be done is captured. I mean, the kind clusters, controller for creating kind clusters and controller for creating repos, is this like more like a stretch goal for R1 that you were thinking? I mean, the only reason
it is a stretch goal for R1, but Victor's already got this done, right, with cluster API.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I mean, I just want to put on some of my, my delivery manager I had from my past, and I always trying to look at things like, hey, wait a minute, this has got some code reviews that need to be run, it needs to be reviewed, it needs to be tested, and we have end-to-end testing that's still not working in pro and all this stuff. I like the feeling that we can do all this stuff is good, but how much time do we have? I mean, I can tell you this, on the package specialization, I wanted to be there. I can tell you, I want to boil the ocean, but I don't have the time. Simple. That's all it is. It's a caution, basically. That's all I'm trying to say. But I know we have to make progress. We have to show improvements and all that stuff. But I would rather have certain things. This is what I was already sharing with Victor. Like, hey, because he's already got it, he's got it running. But would I have the time to go review all the 28 files? That might be, I won't be able to do it, but of course, others probably would be. So.
Well, so let's go, let's put it this way. Like, I would ask that you close this issue and create whatever issues you need. The goal is that as an external non-Nefio developer, I can come in and I can make a decision about two things. One is I can decide, oh, I want to kick the tires on this. So I'm going to click these few buttons and it's going to give me a whole environment and I don't have to think about it. That's number one. Number two is I'm an external, I've kicked the tires. Now I want to go and deploy it to my own management cluster. How do I do that? Those are the two things that we need to solve for R1. Mm-hmm. And I think that the intention of this issue and all the related issues was to solve those two things. So if those issues aren't serving their purpose, or if you've completed parts of them, and like organize that however you need. And I totally agree that in doing that, like, right, we layer it and we do it such that, like, oh, in R1, cluster stuff is a stretch goal. So that's not the first thing we're going to do. We're going to get everything else working. And then if we have time, we'll throw in the cluster stuff.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to I raised my hand just for one thing. One of the things that I was expecting as part of this issue is that we need let's say, the new version of Nefio packages with the new components and the new releases inside. So I was under the impression that that was part of it. Maybe we should create another issue for that, but that's one of the first things that we will need.
Yeah, if we need to keep this issue alive, because we might actually.
For me, we cannot. I prefer to create a separate issue because I think seems to be a bit overloaded somehow. So I think it's better. One of the things that we need, rather quick, I think, is that new flavor of Nefio packages with the latest changes, with the new releases, the new versions and stuff like that. So that's one of the first things that we will need. Otherwise, none of the end-to-end testing can happen, basically. And
so
I just
to understand, you're saying that the basically that new package or the packages will contain, like, for example, all the functions, all the controllers.
Wait, no. So what you need as packages to install, right, is we need actually some Deeps controller runtime that we need is probably important for this as well, right? Because that will be a base for which certain controllers are going to run. So the specializers will be there. So there's going to be a few ports will be there. Ports will be separate, but there's a few controllers that will run inside of that. We need to have a package that represents that, right? So that's one of the things that we need in order to, if you look today, when we install, we first create a kind cluster. The next thing that we do is we just kept package live in it of the files that are in that package. That's the next thing that we do. And we need the equivalent with the right components that represents that. Yeah. So Nefio packages, if you go there, John.
Yeah. Right. So like here
correct.
We have right now we have these three that go in. This one goes in the management cluster. It includes Porch, and it includes the workshop versions.
IPAM backend.
IPAM backend. It includes. So in my mind, we have two choices. We can do it this way and have one big Nefio system package that includes all the management cluster components as one big package. Or like IPAM backend shouldn't really be in there because we said that's separable. So that one would come out, but the rest could stay in there. Alternatively, we could create separate packages for the different pieces. So Porch would have its own package. The Nefio controller manager, which is going to contain the specializers and things, would have their own package. I'm kind of indifferent to the way we do it. But I would love to see, it kind of built out that way. So that's what I'm saying. Like that's what that issue is trying to represent, is exactly what Wim is saying. Like this needs to be updated with all the latest versions of everything and get a new version to tag. This is the UI. Right now we have the backend, the system and the UI separate. Like there's really no reason, they run in the same cluster. So we could do, if we did one big one, we could do it all like that. Or like I said, we could start to break it up. This one runs in the workload cluster, so it has to be a separate package that's applied with kept live apply. These two are just, these should move to the example packages rather than being here. So anyway, does that clarify the ask?
So just to say, just to reiterate to my understanding, John, so you're saying that the Nefio system could contain the UI controller manager, which contains all the other controllers that run inside the management cluster, and it includes Porch, and then also all the functions.
The specializers, no, the functions will run in the pipeline. The specializers you need.
Yeah, the functions are just container images that are run at runtime. This is the packages, the manifests that are used at installation time.
Okay, the instantiation of that will be taken care by the Porch during runtime. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay, got it. So this is mainly controllers. Okay, at least my understanding is clear now for this one. So you are suggesting let's make one for management cluster and similar one for the workload cluster?
I think that would be the simplest thing, at least for now. We can always cut it up later. So you'd have one that includes like the core Nefio pieces for the management cluster, which means we can include the web UI in that. We can include Porch. We can include the Nefio controller manager, which bundles all the specializers and the NF topology controller. That should be basically everything. These are old and don't mean anything anymore. All three of these would be replaced by the controller manager that Sandeep is working on. This is the IPEM backend. That would remain a separate package. It would not be part of Nefio system because it's considered an external, adjacent package. If we do get all of that working and we want to add the cluster piece, we can put cluster API in here. I think is fine in here. There are other analogous projects that wouldn't go in here. So that are for provisioning infrastructure. We'll just leave it at that. So there'd be one for the management cluster. You'd say that installs all the basic stuff. Then there's if you want to use the reference IPEM implementation, also install this package. And yes, when we should include config sync on the management cluster too. So I agree. Yeah, so the management cluster contains Porch, config sync, the Nefio controller manager, and the Nefio web UI. That all runs in the management cluster, and we can all put that all in one package.
And also the gRPC server, right? The aggregator.
Yes.
That's all. Okay.
Unless that is also bundled into the Nefio controller.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, maybe that's also part of the controller, the manager. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so I think we have the specializers. So we split it because the gRPC backend is a separate. I think we agreed to put it. I have a packet for it, by the way. So
yes,
we put it as it's not Nefio, right? But I think there is a controller manager that John explains, which contains the two specializers, so VLAN and IPAM, plus the NF topology, right? So there's a few controllers that run
What
inside
Bala's
of.
talking about is the status aggregator.
Okay, yeah, sure, indeed. Sorry, yeah, okay.
We could
yeah,
bundle
agree.
that into the controller manager too,
Yeah.
if it's essentially a
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, sorry.
library. So the main file lives in the controller manager and it pulls in those different reconcilers. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
And then there's a package for all of that stuff. Then there's a package for the stuff that goes into the workload cluster, which right now, which really is just the bootstrapping. It's just confixing. That's all we need. And then there's a package for the IPAM backend. That's sort of the reference IPAM backend, and and that's another separate. So there's at least 3 packages that are involved in the installation, and that's the ask.
Okay.
So we should structure the issues to make that,
Yeah.
easy to deliver.
So let me just make it down. Management cluster, IPAM backend. What was the third one?
The workload cluster config
Workload. Okay, got it.
which shouldn't have to change much from what I have here. I think right here, if there's a function in here that assumes it's GitHub, so we might need to.
So the workload cluster, are we installing the free 5GC operators and the controllers, everything as well?
So that I would use Nefio to do the installation of that. So what this package is just to bootstrap it so that it's got config sync running and config sync pointed at the workload cluster repository. And that's all we do at installation time. And in fact, yeah, so right, if we go back to that story that we started out with cluster API, right, eventually, when you add a new workload cluster, right now, manually, you'd add a new workload cluster, you'd provision it, however you provision it, and then you'd kept live apply this package, and you'd register, you create a repository, you create a cluster, you register the repository in Porch, and you install config sync on the cluster. This package that we're looking at on the screen right now, that's used for that last step. And what we're saying is the stretch goal is to use Nefio to do all 4 of those steps. So yeah, I'm sorry, we are over time. I think we're almost through the thing, but thanks, Vish. And let's get back to the board. Yeah.
So John, actually, I need to drop off because another internal meeting. So which I am running, so I had to be part of it.
All right.
So thank you so much. Yeah, I'll catch up the recording and then maybe touch base with you later. Thank you so much. The only thing is, if I exit this meeting,
it's okay.
It's 1 second.
I think you can just leave, or you can end for all. So just leave, don't end for all. Oh, I think he left. Okay. Okay, that might be it actually. Do we have the UI team here? I don't think so. I don't see them, but I know that they met with, I can give a little update. They did meet with Chris, and I think they're getting underway, and it looks like, yeah, there's an issue here. I'll reply to this, and I think that, they're starting to work on the new UI panels. So any other questions? I think we're through the board. Do we see any, excuse me, we just talked about yesterday, do we see any roadblocks or anything? I think, is Stephen here? Do we have anything on the, NF topology? Where did they, I thought there was an issue for that here. Okay, oh, it got moved back to do. All right, I'll try and follow up with Stephen on that and see what's going on with that. But anything else before we go? All right, well, thank you all. And I will, Simon, I'm available to chat right now if you want, but we'll do it on Slack or something. Or at least I'll stop the recording.
Yeah.